It can be really, really hard when a client just leaves, whether it's planned or unplanned, expected or unexpected. So today we're going to discuss what to do when a client leaves and the reasons why clients may leave therapy, especially when it's unplanned, and how you as a therapist can manage it in a healthy way instead of blaming yourself or making it all about you, because oftentimes we're guilty of doing that, aren't we? So let's get straight into it. Number one reason a client might leave unexpectedly or in an unplanned way is simply because they're not ready or they're resistant to change, which go hand in hand. Clients may come to therapy because they've been told that they should, or because they know something is wrong and they need to work through it, or because it's a trendy thing to do at the moment. But then they come to therapy and they realize that actually they're not that ready to deal with their issues, they're not ready to fight their demons or whatever you might want to call it. They're just not up to it just yet. And when you try to talk to them about certain things, or when you try to bring up the issues that they claim to have come to therapy for, they're so resistant to talking about it, or they're very resistant to working on it, or they're resistant to change. And it just makes it so difficult to move forward and make any progress with them. So clients like that, it wouldn't be surprising if they just suddenly up and leave therapy without an explanation or without a warning. Some things that you might notice are they might be constantly late. They might miss intermittent sessions. So one session they come, the next they don't, the next they come, the next they don't. And of course, if this is the case, you might have an opportunity to address it with them and talk to them about why they're doing this and actually speak about it in depth and bring it into the room. However, of course, the whole point is that some clients might just abruptly leave and never tell you that they're not coming back. You might not get the chance to address it, but if you do, it would be really important to understand and talk about these patterns of behavior. I mean, I myself have had clients who have come for 1 or 2 sessions and then just never turn up again. You might be like, I'll see you next week, and they'll be like, yeah, I'll see you next week, and then they never come back. And they just don't have the courage or the guts to tell you that actually this is not for me, or I'm not ready, and that's absolutely fine. I'm saying this so that you don't take it personally, because it's very easy for us to take it personally when a client leaves, like, what did I do wrong? But sometimes it might be simply just because they're not ready to take on the work in therapy that is required of them. So even if you never get to address the issue and you never get to address the fact that they're not ready for therapy or why they want to leave therapy so quickly, just be aware that it's not always about you. Reason number 2 is that they might have an avoidant attachment type. And if this is something that you're trained in as a therapist and something that you understand, you can pick up how your client reacts to people based on their attachment type. They might be an avoidant attachment type, and people who have avoidant attachment types are not often very good at getting close to people. It's not something that's comfortable for them, it's not their territory, it's not something they're confident in, and something they thoroughly enjoy. So don't be surprised if they start to mirror their outside relationships in the therapy room with you. Chances are they will also avoid getting too close to you. So maybe when they start feeling like you're getting too close or the relationship is really getting strong, they bolt and you never see them again. That's typical of some people with an avoidant attachment type. Once again, this is not always the case, but it can be like this sometimes. Some other avoidant attachment types might really want to get close to you, but also fear getting close to you at the same time. So they might be very inconsistent. So they might regularly miss sessions, or they'll avoid the ending of a session. So they might miss sessions because they feel like if they keep coming often and they get used to having you around and get used to your empathy and your compassion, it's going to be too much for them. Some people are not used to empathy and compassion, and as strange as it might sound, it makes them feel uncomfortable, and they might even distrust you because you're showing so much empathy that they're not used to, and it might trigger distrust. So subsequently they will leave therapy and never come back again. But once again, it's not about you. Reason number 3 a client might leave therapy is because of money and finances. And I think that's a really common thing, and it's understandable. Somebody in my supervision group talked about a client of hers who recently left therapy because of money issues. And to be honest, even myself, I've had times when I have struggled to attend therapy because of finances. But as you know, because of my course, it's mandatory. So I have to come up with the money somewhere. But for people who are trying to just better themselves but don't have the financial means, therapy can be really hard to prioritize, because therapy is a luxury that not everybody can afford. And hence why the waiting list for free therapy is so long. Some clients may be open with you and just explain that they don't have the money. Some clients might be a bit ashamed and might not want to talk about their financial difficulties with you, so they might just bolt and never tell you why they're leaving and why they're not coming back. Reason number 4 is actually you might have triggered them. And this is not to say you did it intentionally, and it might be hard to accept, but it can happen sometimes. This can look different to different clients. Let's say from a psychodynamic perspective, there could be a strong transference, as in you might remind them of somebody in their life who they don't like or who they don't get on with, or somebody who they associate with negative things. And because you remind them of that person, they might just never feel comfortable around you. They might never want to be in the same room as you. They may never feel comfortable around you, no matter how compassionate and empathetic and unconditional you are in everything that you do and say. Just your presence alone and your mannerisms and whatever else might be, you might remind them of somebody, and they might leave because of that. And also in general, you could say something very run-of-the-mill, very simple, very general, but to them it might trigger something within them which doesn't sit right with them, and it might come across as insensitive, or it might come across as rude, it might come across as inconsiderate, or it might just trigger something which they haven't yet talked about. So they might just be like, actually no, I'm never coming back again, I'm never going to see this therapist again. And they won't tell you simply because they're not prepared to confront you about it. And they might just assume that you're just not the right fit for them just because of that thing, even if you didn't do it intentionally. And it might be because they feel judged or misunderstood by something you said, even if it wasn't intentional. So be aware of that as well. Sometimes you might say something just genuine and normal, but to somebody it could have a lot of significance and it could trigger something. Reason number 5. You are not compatible. By this I mean that you have no therapeutic bond, or you're struggling to build a therapeutic alliance, so you're just not compatible. And this could be for so many reasons, including personality clash. It could be transference, like I mentioned before. It could be because you as a therapist are not able to connect with them. Maybe because they are one of those clients that likes to story tell, and they're jumping from story to story to story, and it's overwhelming for you. It could be because you're not able to get into their frame of reference. So whenever you summarize or paraphrase something to them, it's like completely off and it's not correct, and you're just not in their frame of reference, and that might not gel well with them. It could be because you're inexperienced, or because it's not in your area of expertise. And it could be because they've come to therapy expecting you to do all the work, and they're just sitting there expecting you to give them all the answers and tell them what to do and how to do it. And of course that's really exhausting for you as a therapist, but this doesn't exhaust all the reasons. But there could be so many reasons why you're not compatible, and it's just important to be aware of this. And in some cases, the best way to handle this would be to just refer them onto somebody else, especially when you know that they need somebody else with a different area of expertise that you don't have. Reason number 6 is that a client might suddenly feel better. A client might come to you completely down in the dumps, completely depressed, completely just like hopeless and in the dark about life. And then something happens in their personal life, something switches, something changes, and all of a sudden they come back and they're like, actually, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm fine, all is well, I don't need you anymore. And sometimes they might not tell you, but chances are you'll notice when they do come back that they're actually okay. But sometimes we assume that a client has left therapy because the worst has happened, but sometimes they could just be so much better and everything is fine, and they're just like, oh, I don't need to go back to therapy. Why should I go back? Why should I pay for another session just to tell you that I'm fine? Personally, I know that sometimes I'm not sure whether to completely believe a client that everything is okay, or if it's just a temporary thing. It's not up to us to decide whether they should stay. If they feel like they're genuinely okay, we just have to accept and believe that they are, and trust that they know what's best for them. Reason number 7 is anxiety. This is not to say that it's because they're diagnosed with anxiety, but one of the reasons could be that maybe they're diagnosed with anxiety. So coming to therapy and having all the attention on them, everything be about them and the focus on them, might be a bit overwhelming and might be very anxiety provoking. So they would probably feel very, very uncomfortable to keep coming back to therapy. They might be coming to try and push themselves and, get themselves out of that mindset of everything is scary and everything is anxiety provoking. But when they come, they might not actually be able to handle it. So they'll probably just leave and never come back again. On the other hand, even if they're not diagnosed with anxiety, they might just be anxious about everything that they want to talk about in therapy, sharing a lot of personal things, maybe things that they've never talked about before, things that they'd kept in Pandora's box, things that they'd kept in their closets, but now they're going to bring it to therapy, and that might be the reason why they feel anxious, and this might be overwhelming. And they might come for the first session, tell you everything or blurt out certain things, and then go home and instantly regret it and be like, you know what, no, I'm not going back, I'm not sharing anymore, I shouldn't have done it. And that might play in their thoughts and in their mind a lot. So that might be another reason why a client might leave therapy and never come back again. But what I suggest and recommend is trying maybe at the start of a session, if you know that anxiety is a big thing for them, or if it's their first time coming to therapy, to just address the anxiety within them. Ask them, how is your anxiety levels at the moment? Maybe we should do some breathing work and just calm down and be grounded and be present in the room. And then ask them how they feel throughout the session. Let them know that if everything gets too much or if it gets too overwhelming, that they can stop at any time, that they can take a break, and that we can take a pause on the session and do breathing work as and when they feel like they need it. I had a client who came to me with anxiety at one point, and something we did at the start of every session was just to talk about her anxiety levels and how she was feeling. And I always let her know that we could always pause and take a break. And even if they don't announce that they need a break, if you can see or sense something that is shifting and that you feel like they need a break, ask them, do you need a break? Would you like us to take a pause on this? Would you like us to change the topic? Would you like us to do some breathing work? That might be really helpful as well. Reason number 8 might be shame and stigmatization. Someone might know that they need to go and get therapy, but might be really, really ashamed because of the stigma around it, especially in certain cultures that look down on therapy. And this is especially going to be a bit more common amongst men who generally struggle to ask for help. So a client like this might come to the first session, attempt to talk about what's on their mind, share their feelings and be open. But then as soon as they leave, they might be really embarrassed. They might be really ashamed that, oh my gosh, I went. I'm so weak. I spoke about my feelings and I can't believe I did that. And then they might just never come back because the shame and the embarrassment is overwhelming. Of which, if they do come back again, it might be worth talking about and asking them about the shame and the embarrassment they felt if they do come back. But of course, if they don't, then you can't. But that might be another reason a client might not come back to therapy. Reason number 9 that a client might not come back to therapy is because you are being unprofessional or inappropriate. And one of the most common things that I hear about therapists being inappropriate or unprofessional is talking about themselves a lot. You are constantly self-disclosing, and we know self-disclosure is only meant to be within the best interest of the client. Some therapists will self-disclose just everything and anything about themselves, what they got up to, what their pets' names are, what they're doing on their weekend, what they did for their last birthday, what they're going to be doing for Christmas, what their summer holiday was like, what countries they want to go to. Your client doesn't need to know all of these things. There's no reason why a client should know all of those things about you. And a lot of the time, some therapists will go wrong by sharing too much, and this is enough for a client to never come back to you again. So check yourself. If you're talking about yourself a lot, check yourself. I'm not going to talk about all the other things that are unprofessional or inappropriate because I think it's quite obvious, breaking boundaries and stuff. So yeah, let's move on to number 10. One of the reasons being fear of abandonment or fear of endings. Some clients might know that therapy is coming to an end and they don't like that. They have a fear of abandonment through attachment and through various issues. And for them, they'll just be like, you know what, before you end it, I'm going to end it first so that it doesn't feel like you left me. So they'll just not turn up. Even if you've talked about it, our time is ending in 6 months, our time is ending in 6 weeks, our time is ending in 2 weeks. And they will know and they will not turn up. That happens. And it's not about you. Maybe they have a fear of abandonment. Maybe they don't like endings because it feels like they're being left again, just like everyone else leaves them. This has happened to me as well, and at the time I was quite confused, but I've learned not to take it personally because some people are just not good with endings. So leading up to the endings, if you get that far, you might want to talk about, how do you feel about endings? How do you feel about our time in therapy coming to an end, and just discuss it. So at least closer to the time, at least you can work through any issues that they might have about endings. Reason number 11 is that maybe your therapeutic approach is just not appropriate for them. Sometimes, a client might need CBT, but you're person-centered. Or you might be offering CBT, but they actually need something psychodynamic. So it's important to understand and assess that what your client needs. And as much as it might be tempting to be like, let me just take on the client because I need the money or because whatever else, take on a client because you can work with them appropriately and you can meet their needs. So that might be another thing where your therapeutic approach doesn't align with them and therefore it's not helpful for them. It's not in their best interest. So as the sessions go on and as you work together, you probably won't make as much progress as you need to or as much progress as the client wants to, simply because your therapeutic approach is not appropriate for the issues that they've come to therapy about. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So that brings me to the end of this video, and I hope it was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.